Our Jaguars.com draft coverage is presented by Cadillac. The Jaguars pick at number 1 overall, defensive end Travon Walker from the University of Georgia. Welcome into our coverage on Jaguars.com. A live look inside Daly's place. JP Shadrick, Bucky Brooks, John Oehser, instant reaction. There's the draft room. Shad Khan, second from the left, Tony Khan far left, Trent Baalke, and then Doug Pederson on the right side in the front row after the pick is in. And then inside Daly's place at the draft party and a packed house, not a seat to be found. They are reacting to the selection of Travon Walker at number 1 overall. Bucky, we talked about this going into the draft tonight. What do you know about Travon Walker? What do you like? What can be his ceiling in the NFL?
So this is a Swiss Army knife on the front line, meaning he can play anywhere from nose all the way out to the edges. Big, physical, explosive at the point of attack, outstanding change of direction, ability for a guy his size. Now, you will see a lot of people talk about the lack of production, but what you see is a lot of disruption at the point of attack. That disruption hasn't necessarily filled the stat sheet, but he's a key member of a dominant defense. What you're hoping in Jacksonville, his ceiling is to be a multiple-time Pro Bowl player who disrupts from a variety of different areas as a chess piece in this defense.
Here's how versatile he is. Leading to the draft, you saw him listed as a defensive lineman, outside linebacker, defensive end. I had somebody text me the other day, hey, he's more of a 5 technique. I've heard he's an edge rusher. He can do everything. Bucky, I made the point. I want to see if you agree with this. He wasn't productive numbers-wise, but when you watched him, he was productive. So I think some people who have been concerned about his lack of, quote, production are really locked in on TFLs, tackles for losses. My question is, and I don't know this, how many of those things did he force for other people at Georgia? Because he did play more snaps than anybody else on the defensive line. Shows me they thought he was the best player on their defensive line, and the disruption on film probably shows it more than the actual stats.
Look, man, this is a very talented and versatile athlete. I will say this. The Jaguars were smitten with Travon Walker very early in the process. Before the combine and talking to some of their coaches, some of the people around the team, they felt like this guy had the most upside of anybody in the draft. Then he put on a dominant performance at the combine, which confirmed his athleticism. And so now, as a coaching staff, you see a guy who has tremendous traits and tools. Can you maximize those tools and make him into a dominant player?
Let's go to the press conference live. Doug Pederson and Trent Baalke after the pick.
Player, he played all the way up and down the line of scrimmage, anywhere from a 0 technique to a 7 technique. Played in the 2-point off the edge, which he's going to be used a lot at in our scheme. He can, that versatility, ability to stop the run, rush the passer. There's a lot of work to do, but there's a lot of talent to work with.
Yeah, really just to echo Trent's remarks too, just, you know, his athleticism, his length, his ability to bend the corner, you know, and the thing that you see with this guy, and it is his versatility. He played all up and down the defensive line at Georgia. Just a tremendous kid. He's going to be great for the locker room. You know, and really, I think for us too, just getting him in here, getting him, you know, going as soon as we can. You know, and I think getting him in one position and letting him really get good at one position, and that's where we feel that he's really going to, you know, make the most impact for us.
This is also for both of you. There was a lot of pre-draft speculation that you Trent favored Travon, and that you Doug favored the offensive lineman Ekwonu. Could you talk a little bit about how you arrived at this decision? I mean, did you guys actually have some disagreement about this?
Can I just stop you?
Yeah.
There was never, this thing was never split.
Okay, I'm not saying I'm not saying it was. I'm just saying that.
I know it's out, and I just want to just go out on record and say it was never that way. I don't know where that came from, and you know, that's one of the things I've loved about our process is the communication and us being on the same page, and you know, these sort of unnamed sources, so to speak. You know, I don't get into a lot of that, and it a lot of work went into, you know, making this selection tonight, and we're just fired up to have Travon in the building.
That said, could you answer the original question about how, you know, you obviously collaborated on it, but was there consensus from the get-go about Trayvon, or was that something that you had to arrive at after a while?
Well, I think Doug did a great job of just telling. There was never a non-consensus. There was a lot of collaboration through this process. You know, we never had that debate. You know, what we did is take a look at each prospect, how they fit our system, how they fit the organization, the culture, and we worked from there. We took them all independently and we worked through them. And we just felt at the end of the day this was the best pick for this organization at this time.
Hey, Trent, Doug, over here. There seems to be this perception from a lot of fans that Walker just popped on at the Combine, and that's when teams really started to fall in love with him. Can you talk about, I mean, I know you've been doing homework on guys all season long, or, you know, into last season, when you first saw Walker and, prior to the Combine and started to say, okay, this might be a guy?
Well, the first time that I saw him personally was early October. And from that moment on, I felt he had a lot of talent. And obviously, you don't make the decision the middle of October, early October. It's a process. But he checked the boxes as we went through the process. We got a great chance to look at him through the season. I played an extended season into the national championship game, and they obviously won that. Then he goes to the Combine. He went to his pro day, and he did all the drills, both linebacker and defensive line. So we got a great chance to spend a lot of time with him. He was one of the guys we visited with at the Combine. He came in for one of the 30 visits, and I believe we sent 5 or 6 coaches to the pro day in Georgia. So we had a lot of front and center action with him, a lot of opportunity to get to know him, to spend time with him as an individual. And again, he checked all the boxes throughout the entire process.
Hey, and Doug, from a coach's perspective, when you see a guy with the athletic ability like Walker, does that just get your wheels turning of ways you can use him?
Of course, with the versatility that he has and the length that he has, and he's a humble guy that just wants to work and improve, and it's exciting to be able to see where he can help us, and he's already coming into a good room, and he just made the room better, and we're excited for that.
Trent, there's a lot of talk about his floor and his ceiling. Where do you see his floor and where do you see his ceiling for this guy?
Well, all of these guys, all of these young guys coming into the league, they obviously got here on the efforts they put forth and what they did at the collegiate level. There's a lot of learning to do for all of these guys coming in. We feel very strongly about him as a player, that we're going to end up with a good football player, but it's not going to be without a lot of work on his part. So the ceiling is up to him. We're going to do our best to put him in position to reach that ceiling. But at the end of the day, it's really on these guys, these young men, to come in, put in the time, both mentally and physically, to reach the ceiling that they're all capable of reaching.
Trent, a lot of folks questioning that the production, quote unquote, at least in the numbers department, wasn't there. The sack numbers aren't there. What would you say to those critics who may say, well, you're taking a guy who maybe didn't have the college production of some of the other edge rushers on the board?
You can't make excuses for any player. What we can do is look at the film and what's production. There's a lot of things that go into production. It's not, at the end of the day, just how many sacks they tally or how many pressures they have. There's a run element to the game too. So there's a lot of ways to look at production, and we feel very comfortable about his production, run and pass, with a lot of upside. But again, he's got to come in like these young guys do. They got to come in and earn it.
And also one other thing, the report just surfaced about a car accident that he was involved in 2 weeks ago. I was curious if you knew about that and if you were able to comment.
Yeah, absolutely, we knew about it, but no comment.
Following up a little bit on Mia's question regarding production. In terms of efficiency, you talked about it's not just sacks, but in terms of efficiency, in terms of the times he was actually allowed to go get the quarterback, as opposed to maybe other, standard edge rushers in the draft. What did you think about his efficiency in not just in the times he was able to get the quarterback versus the times he was actually allowed to try and do it?
Well, I think when you watch his film, the one thing he does an excellent job of canceling his gap. and they play a very gap-oriented defense. He plays up and down the line of scrimmage from the A gap all the way out to the D gap, and he rarely was out of gap. He's a very gap-sound football player. They do a great job of coaching there. This young guy's going to come in with some great coaching behind him. He's young. He's 21 years old and a lot to learn, especially when you step into this league and this arena. So, again, the expectation is for him to come in, settle him into one position, and get him comfortable, get him playing, and then, take it from there in terms of the versatility.
As a follow-up to that, what does it say about his instinct that he was able to play all the way across the line and be as effective as he was?
I think it says a lot. Every technique you play, it's a little bit different. You play over the head of the center, and you got a trifecta coming at you. You play in the over the guard, that's a whole other element. You play inside eye on the tackle, that's another technique you got to learn. All these techniques take time, take feel. He's got a lot of natural feel to his game, especially playing along the line of scrimmage, but he also did an excellent job playing on his feet in the snaps that he played on his feet. And he did that, I would say roughly 15% of the time or whatever that allotted to, but he's proven he can do all the things that we're going to ask him to do in our system and have the versatility to do it and do it at a high level.
Question for you, Doug. I think this might have been repeated, but do you see him as far as his strength? I mean, obviously the versatility is an asset, but what about his ability to be an interior defensive lineman also? I mean, you see him in that role?
Well, I think I would echo what Trent said about him. We got to get him in here first, and we got to get him in one position. We do like this. One of the things we liked about Travon is his versatility, and the fact that he can move up and down the defensive line. And, it's something that as we go and as we grow with him, knowing that he's been able to do that, maybe you come up with a package or two where he goes down inside on third down or something of that nature. But again, for right now, let's get him in here. Let's get him working with our guys, with our coaches, get him in one spot, and, get him with the group.
Hey, Trent, just to kind of circle back on what Gene was asking earlier about the process. When did you finally arrive at the decision? When you go through all of the discussion, then you finalize that decision. When was that? And then the second part is about Abe and Hutchinson and how close maybe it was between Travon and Abe and even Severell.
Well, let's answer the second part first. It was a process, for a lot of these guys, and we had it narrowed down to 6-7 guys for quite some time, and we were working through the fits, and I'm not going to get into comparing, Travon to Aiden or any other player in the draft. These guys are all individuals, and there's you look at them for what they are, and how they were played in the system they were played in, and you try to envision how that's going to fit the system that we employ. As far as when did we come up with the final decision, it's never final till you meet with ownership. And we met with ownership yesterday. I had a good meeting with Shad for about an hour and a half, 2 hours in the draft room, and that's when we've actually finalized it.
What does it say here in the front? Sorry, what does it say about Walker that he played some of the best football in those 2 playoff games like that? Do you love that part about a guy that really shows up when the stakes are at the highest?
Well, you're always looking for guys that rise to the biggest moments, right? He's played some very consistent football all year long. This isn't a guy, and it was mentioned earlier, this isn't a guy that just jumped on the screen because he ran 4.51 in the 40-yard dash at the combine. He played some very good football throughout the course of the year. I think he got on the scene a little late because people weren't expecting him to be in the draft this year. They weren't expecting it, as he got better and as it became more evident that he was going to, probably enter the draft, I think that's when people started taking much harder looks at him.
A question.
The comments of Trent Baalke and Doug Pederson after the #1 overall pick, Travon Walker from the University of Georgia. JP Shadrick with NFL Network analysts Bucky Brooks, and Jaguars quarterback Tyson Campbell joining us on set now. Good to see you, Tyson. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Well, a Georgia Bulldog is coming to Jacksonville again. You were the second-round pick last year out of Athens. So tell us about Travon Walker as a teammate. How was he at Georgia?
Travon, cool dude, man. He's funny off the field, but we on the field, freaking nature. So, Jacksonville gonna get a guy that can do it all: run, hit, get the quarterback, dropping coverage, as you see. But so I'm really excited and ready to get to work with him.
And thinking about the success you guys had at Georgia, what are some of the things that you think he'll learn from his time at Georgia that will help him make a quick transition to the league?
Just the reading run passes and the pass rush moves and holding on the blocks, holding gaps and stuff like that. Those type of things we teach at Georgia, which is, gives us an advantage because it's such a, NFL type program down there. So, I think that's going to help him a lot.
Well, they used the word versatility about 17 times, I think, in that press conference, Travon.
Yeah.
That'll help him out a lot, right? If he can fill in a spot here, jump in another role there, it's not a bad thing on defense.
Right. You want a guy that can do a lot, man, that'll help the team out. Whether it be him, coming inside the end or rushing off the edge at outside linebacker or even, dropping in coverage, maybe a curl flat and stuff like that. So, that helped them a lot, and I think that's going to help us a lot as well.
Well, Coach Pederson, you guys are building a new culture in the locker room.
Right.
How does his work ethic and his mentality, how does he fit into what you guys are kind of forming that nucleus in the locker room?
Yeah, I think he's just buying in, and with minicamp, everyone bought in. He got this motto called "Work to Win." Everyone's doing that. We had a great minicamp. Guys are communicating, flying around, and playing with a lot of energy. So, just seeing that early and how much energy and our coaches put into us in the film and also on the field, shows that we can run something special.
All right, Tyson, fired up for Travon, it sounds like, right?
Yeah, most definitely.
Joining this defense.
Go
Hey, before you go, let's get a big Duval out of you. How about it for the fans?
Duval!
There you have it. Tyson Campbell out of here on Jaguars.com and here at the Jaguars draft party. Our thanks to the Jaguars cornerback for joining us. He was a second-round pick last year out of Georgia, and, of course, they go and win the national championship last year with that outstanding defense, of course, Bucky in Georgia. But Travon Walker, as we mentioned before, when all of a sudden he shows up in Indianapolis at the Combine and starts testing and the numbers are off the charts, that's when a lot of people who might not have been close to it open their eyes a lot.
Yeah, I think that certainly opened everybody's eyes, and that's what the Combine is supposed to do. It's your first real exposure to the athleticism, and the athleticism was off the charts. And so when you see a guy that can move around like that at that size, and then you turn on the tape and you see a Swiss Army knife, a guy that can play anywhere from nose to edge. And then you heard Tyson talk about, hey, man, this is a guy that can drop in the curl flat. He can rush off the edge. He can disrupt the run game. There's a lot of things to be excited about what he could be in this defense in terms of being a chess piece at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to note, it's become sort of a thing in the pre-draft. I even got questions about this in the Ozone that I do. He came out of nowhere. There's a perception this guy was like a fourth-round pick before the Combine. That's not the case at all. He was a top 10 projected guy even going into the national championship game. The Combine helped solidify all that. But I think it's important for people to realize he didn't come out of nowhere. This is not a quote, workout warrior who didn't produce on the field and all of a sudden came along and was running a 4.3, so they took him. He's a football player. The most interesting quote from Trent Baalke, there's a lot of work to do, but a lot to work with. I think that sort of sums up how they feel about him. He's not polished yet. He's not a perfect NFL player yet, but boy, the potential is what they love about this guy. The question is, can he develop those specific skills that you need to rush the passer? That's going to be the thing to watch for him early in his career, Buck.
Yeah, it is. It's all about the pass rush because when you're drafting a player #1 overall, he has to be able to put up numbers to validate why he was the #1 overall pick. And he is a great defender against the run, but ultimately it's a passing league, and you have to be able to get to the quarterback. And so Brinson Buckner, this defensive staff, they got to get to work, make sure they give him enough tools to enable him to be a dominant player off the edge.
It's interesting, rare, JP, that you get a player where that's so clear the question on him. I mean, there's no doubt he's a great player, and it's specific what he has to do it's going to be an easy storyline to follow early in his career.
Of course, a lot of ears perked up here at Daly's Place when Ian Rappaport comes on and reports of a serious car accident in Athens, Georgia, involving Travon Walker before the draft, apparently crashing into two parked cars. He emerged without injuries, no citations, but a scare for sure. That was a tweet from Ian Rappaport, and you heard the Jaguars brass asked about that. They were aware of it 2 weeks ago. No further comment. And now he's the #1 pick, Bucky. That's part of that last couple weeks check on guys.
Yeah, and that's why you always are checking in with guys, just to make sure that everything is good with them leading up into it. And also, not only that, you don't want to be ambushed by a question that you don't have an answer to. That's why you always got to keep the communication up with the guys that you're really interested in.
That's why you pay the big bucks for that research, JP.
That's right. Scouting departments, Bucky, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's
it's
what
all
it is.
about.
That's what it's about. You got to do it. Spend the money.
Got to have sources in college towns, that's for sure. Travon Walker is the first player selected first overall in the common draft era. That's since 1967. That didn't make an all-conference or an all-American team in college. As we said, a lot of those times those guys get the big stats and they get the accolades and the things. But he's setting up some other guys in that Georgia defense and then affecting things in a different way on this defense.
Yeah, look, and there's going to be a lot of that conversation about the production and those things. But now that he's here, really it's about utilization. The questions now have to go to how are they going to utilize him at the point of attack? Where is he going to line up? What's going to be his role? And how can he take that role and become an all-pro in whatever role the Jags give him?
Well, the storylines are so clear with this guy, as we talked about a few minutes ago. It's clear if you're making an argument for him. Look, Georgia may have had as much talent on defense as any team. What, Bucky? You scout more than I do, certainly,
I mean,
in a long, long time. So it's a very easy argument to make why he didn't have numbers, because everybody else did too. And on a great defense, you come in waves, you don't have the opportunities. Aiden Hutchinson didn't have as much around him. He had more sack opportunities. That's very clear. At the same time, when you draft a guy who has not had huge sack numbers, and you're expecting him to play a position where you do have huge sack numbers, you've got to produce those. So, as I say, it is not going to be a difficult story to follow with this kid in the first couple of years.
You see on your screen now the defensive line for the Jaguars. This does not include outside linebacker position. That would include Josh Allen and the like there. But here's what he's coming into. Malcolm Brown, Fatukasi came in free agency. Hamilton a few years ago. Key in free agency. Roy Robertson Harris. Smoot has just signed a new deal. Tufele, Raekwon Williams. So how can he fit in right away in this defense?
Anywhere he wants, right?
Yeah, anywhere. But I think, honestly, look, when they open up, I would expect Josh Allen to be on one end, Travon Walker to be on the other end. I think it's going to be incumbent upon Caleb Chasen to figure out a way to create a role for himself. But I think you pencil in Travon Walker on the outside, and then you put a plus by it, because he's going to play outside linebacker plus whatever else they can create in sub packages.
Well, Bucky, how important is it early? Say you're a coach. I know you're a scout. Everybody knows you're a scout. But say you're a coach. Do you want to move him around a lot early, or do you need to let him play one position for a while and get used to it? Because it's hard to be a Swiss Army knife when you're trying to learn where the bathrooms are.
Yeah, it is. It is tough to be a Swiss Army knife. I think there are a couple different ways that you can do. You can create a specific package for him with some versatile things mixed in there, where he only has to learn that part of it and not the entire spectrum of the defense. Look, everyone knows the pressure that's going to be on the coaching staff and the personnel department to get it right. I think they're going to try and figure out a way to get him on the field the majority of the snaps, so at least it comes off that he is making progress and he's giving them some kind of production.
What will he give them right away without any coaching? Meaning, what does he bring, worst case, as a rookie, first 8 games?
Explosive athlete who's able to create disruption with his movement skills and nonstop effort. That is how he can give them immediate production. By coming in, playing hard, chasing sideline to sideline, and making plays off effort while he develops the skills.
I have one more question for the scout, JP.
Well, you got to hurry. Got to hurry.
33, what do they do?
Well, I think now you can turn your attention to offensive line. I think what you do is you wait for the best player to fall out of the first round. You evaluate that player versus who's at the top of your board, and then you make a determination on who is the best player that fits the biggest need.
I still go up for receiver, but that's just me.
It's the 5th time a Georgia player has been taken number 1 overall, joining Frank Sinkwich in 43, Charlie Trippi in 44, Harry Babcock in 53, and Matthew Stafford in 2009. This year it's Travon Walker in 2022 to the Jacksonville Jaguars, number 1 overall. Stay tuned for our coverage on Jaguars.com and Jag social media. It's presented by Cadillac. And here's a good look at some highlights of the number 1 overall pick, Travon Walker.
I don't know no better, I'm on this every day. Can I run with me, boy, I'm a heavyweight. Baby, I know what's coming, I could barely wait. And when it was on, they wanted me gone, boy, I'm here to stay.
Making brought down. That is Walker.